The Blue Jays have some important decisions to make with some players coming off the injured reserves. What are they going to do? We will answer that question here on Locked On Blue Jays.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. But the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So we are back for one of the last episodes of the guest week. We have made it to the Friday episode, and the Blue Jays are on an absolute tear. Unfortunately for them, they did have an off day on Thursday. So we got to talk about some of the roster decisions that will need to be made. Right now, the Blue Jays have a ton of players on the IL. And eventually, they obviously will be coming back to the team. So some roster moves will need to be made. Some players will have to get sent to AAA, and there might even be some DFA options. So we're going to break that all down here on Locked On Blue Jays. But before we do get into that, just wanted to say thank you guys for coming back, tuning into the episode, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you do listen to your podcasts. I'm your host, Carter First. Our Twitter is Locked On Jays. My personal is Carter First 2. Braden Five Wasco is the other host. He is on vacation right now, so we do have a fill-in for him right now. But we appreciate you guys liking, commenting, supporting our content. We do post shorts, reels. We are planning on going live as well. So if you guys hit that bell, you will be able to get our content as soon as it is released. Sometimes we do like to sneak up on you guys and release content at, random times throughout the night. We are both night owls as well. So you might get, the random midnight upload, and you might miss it if you don't have that bell on. But before, I guess without further ado, let's get right into it and bring back one of the guests that we did have on in this guest week.
Locked On Blue Jays guest host Skylar Peters.
I was going to take a sip of this, and then it was me holding the glass of wine. So I'm now sipping my electrolytes as I prepare for a big weekend series against the Phillies.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't pour a little bit in the cup and then just took the bottle, supporting it on the pod here. Because you definitely know the Blue Jays were getting after it on that Wednesday flight after
great plane series. Ride.
Probably one of the best of the season, let's be honest.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I listening to Blair and Barker on the post-game show on Wednesday, I guess it was, and there seemed to be some debate about whether Jeff Blair thinks there's only beer and wine available on the plane. Kevin Barker thinks that if you want a drink of any sort, they'll find a way to get it to you. I don't know where you stand on that. Obviously, neither of us have ridden on a Major League Baseball charter flight, but I think I'd side with KB, Kevin Barker, that is. I guess they're both Bs. But, this is Major League Baseball. I'm pretty sure they got a little Rumbo. They got a little vodka for you if you need.
Yeah, you can't tell me that Vladdy's getting paid $500 million and they can't get the guy a bottle if he has a good series. There's just no way that they don't have these available. Like, they got to have some Yusei Kikuchis on the team that, celebrate with some scotch after a good start. So clearly Kikuchi, maybe he did have limited options because he went to his own disposal to go and grab that bottle. So maybe things are a little bit limited on that plane. I think they should be limited if they don't win. I think that's how it should be. Like, you're stuck with Twisted Teas or some high school BS.
Yeah.
You're not even allowed to pick if you're not playing good baseball.
I think if you went into St. Louis and you got 1 out of 3 games, the guys, the khakis and the manager is probably going to take a look over the shoulder and see who's sipping one and who's not. Starters are exempt from this completely. They have their own schedules. They can do whatever the heck they want. I don't really care. But if you go over in the rubber match of a 3-game series and you lose it or something, have a water. Get ready for Philadelphia, gentlemen. Many reasons to celebrate, and I think it's a microcosm for all of us and people watching this. You and me, Braden. Let's enjoy this moment. This is the best Blue Jays baseball we've seen in several years, and there's reasons for hope and there's reasons to be excited. So don't try and downplay it. At least that's the mindset I'm bringing into the next couple of weeks for this team for sure.
No, I think that's definitely a fair assessment. Just kind of taking a step back and looking at this road trip. You had the Minnesota Twins, you had the St. Louis Cardinals, and you had the Philadelphia Phillies. All teams either in a playoff spot or battling for a playoff spot. So you had some good competition going into this road stretch. And for me personally, if they were 5-4, I was going to be very happy on this road trip. And here the Blue Jays are 5-1 after they beat the Twins in a series. They obviously swept the St. Louis Cardinals, and now they go to Philadelphia for probably the hardest series of that road trip. And they play the Philadelphia Phillies with an absolute gauntlet of a pitching schedule. But how has your expectations changed throughout this road trip? And like, how the Blue Jays, I mean, obviously they've performed at least like sort of up to your expectations. They probably over exceeded expectations, but just how have you felt about the Blue Jays on this road trip?
Yeah, it felt really good. Obviously, I mean, the Bowden start on Sunday is the only blemish on the card so far for the Blue Jays. Five pars or maybe a couple birdies and one, maybe it was a double bogey. But at the end of the day, I think, if you go, 6-3 would have been optimistic expectation for me on this road trip. You go 1-2 in Philadelphia, you come home with that record. I think as a whole, you got to be pretty pleased with that. Obviously, the toughest assignment on this three set road trip is the last one. Recency bias is definitely king in the MLB in the regular season, but I'm just trying to keep that kind of full approach, at least for myself. And I think we're ahead of the game right now as far as it stands on this road trip. And even after the Minnesota series, you came off the first two wins and then the Bowden loss. And as we said on Wednesday morning's pod, like the vibes didn't really feel good on Monday coming into Busch Stadium. And obviously we completely turned things around. So if you take a whole picture approach, looking back at the last 6 games, looking ahead to the next 3, 6-3 is fantastic stuff. That's solid baseball. I think Jays fans at the start of the year would take solid baseball. If anything other than that, it's just gravy. So I hope we can get there in the Philly, and we'll obviously preview the series in the third segment, take 2 out of 3, something like that, of course. But I think we're definitely ahead of the game as it stands, getting on the bird and going to Philly for a tough assignment this weekend.
Yeah, how fun would it be to just exceed expectations once again, keep the momentum going, and steal 2 out of 3 from the Philadelphia Phillies in their own ballpark? Oh, I got one unfortunate stat. Probably will be the only time I'm negative on this podcast, at least. Can't say anything for the near future. But when we look at this streak that the Toronto Blue Jays are on, they swept the Athletics. They have a Philadelphia Phillies series. They lose 1 game. It's a Bowden Francis start. You go to the Twins series. You look at that game. They lose 1 game. It's a Bowden Francis start. You go to the St. Louis series. They sweep that series. Now we're back in Philly. You got Kevin Gausman, Bowden Francis, and Jose Berrios. So again, if it comes back to it and you win 2 out of 3 and the only 3 games you've lost in this little stretch here are Bowden Francis starts, it's going to be very hard to overlook that for the near future. But we're not necessarily going to talk about the starting rotation in this episode. We're going to talk about, honestly, everything else, because obviously you guys are aware that the Blue Jays have a ton of guys on IL right now, some of them for longer than others. But just to name a few, Nathan Lucas on the IL, Max Scherzer, Nick Sandlin, Daulton Varsho, Anthony Santander, Jimmy Garcia, Ryan Burrs. So you can almost make, a full batting order with all the guys that you do have injured. Again, maybe you want Max Scherzer, kind of going back to the NL days, would be, again, pitchers hitting in this scenario. But the 7 players on the IL that I just named, obviously that is a pretty good bunch that you do have. So once all these players do come back, other than Ryan Burr, I think you got to expect that all of these players will once again make their way into this lineup, into this rotation, into this bullpen. So we have some stuff to talk about, and we're going to start with the position players. With Nathan Lucas, it is a minor injury. That's a 7-day concussion. He was on the 7-day IL stint. And that was from that Ernie Clement play. You have Daulton Varsho, who's supposed to come back at some point in the middle of June, probably closer to the end of next week. Still nursing a hamstring injury. Anthony Santander there, just going over some injury updates, obviously. Did have a PRP shot. I had to learn the difference between cortisone shots and PRP shots. I had no idea.
I don't either. So if you want to educate, feel free.
I'll give a very quick rundown. So PRP is pretty much a longer term solution. There is a lot more minimized risk in that, but it does take a little bit longer to kick in and relieve that pain. When you have the cortisone shots, it is a little bit more risks of side effects, but it does. It is very good anti-inflammatory, and it does work pretty much immediately. So that would be the benefit of using each of those. Anthony Santander goes to the safer route with the PRP injection. I think that goes to show that the Toronto Blue Jays aren't necessarily trying to rush him back, especially with the offensive production that they are getting. So right now, if you looked at the lineup, if this was the lineup that we were rolling out before the season started, I mean, I would look at you like you're absolutely insane, especially if you told me that they are 8 games above 500. That is absolutely insane. But I guess the way we'll attack this is, for you personally, who are your everyday players? Who are your, not like you have to just, again, pencil these guys in every single day. You're not even necessarily thinking about it. Who are those guys for you in this Toronto Blue Jays lineup?
Well, I mean, obviously the infield is pretty set. I think, Ernie Clement, and obviously maybe this is recency bias. He probably had his best game of the season in Game 3 against the Cards, 3 for 3 with a homer. He kind of did everything. In the last 5 games, he's played every part of the infield, that sort of thing. So I think you got to pencil him in as your everyday third baseman. I do think it's maybe an opportunity, one of the positions that the Blue Jays could upgrade at the trade deadline if they're looking for a bat. Is maybe the third base position. And, you can use Ernie's utility. He can spell guys in days off as he's done. Obviously, he's incredible hitting left-handed pitching, one of the best in the league right now. I think his OPS is over 1,000 against lefties. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that card if you happen to know the real number. But
yeah, it's over 1,000.
Yeah. It's just been incredible. Great tool to have in the tool shed for John Schneider. Second base short obviously is very set with Andrus Jimenez and Bichette, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to be your everyday first baseman. I think the outfield is when you get into some questions, of course. There are a lot of guys that are, those 24th, 25th, 26th man on the roster. Those are the outfield guys. If you're being honest, we haven't seen a lot of Davis Schneider since the call up. Anthony Santander, that's where he's going to play if he's not DHing, if he's not on the bench. I think we've liked what we've seen from Miles Straw. I've liked what I've seen from Miles Straw. It was, a disappointing pickup, but everything that he's brought to the table since becoming a Toronto Blue Jay has been fantastic. You're never going to take George Springer out of the lineup, whether he's hitting .82 or .382, just based on the number and the fact that he had the largest contract in Blue Jays history until Vladdy signed his a little bit earlier this year. Santander has to play in the outfield at some point. You got Varsho coming back. It's very jammed out there. And don't forget Addison Barger, who could play infield and outfield. And we've seen a little bit of both, but, you want to see those tools in action. And I think Blue Jays fans should want to see Addison Barger get a long runway and many, many starts in a row to kind of show what he can do. Because, just a week ago, I think we were all ranting and raving about Addison Barger as being, the next great Toronto Blue Jay and everything that he's shown. So I do think that's kind of the position where, things are really in flux for these Blue Jays. As far as position players go, there were no notes about this catcher tandem, as you and I mentioned on Wednesday morning's podcast. It's been fantastic. So a good problem to have for GM Ross Atkins, the Blue Jays brass, and John Schneider making these lineup decisions right now. But of course, as we all know, things can turn on a dime, and maybe some of these guys kind of hit their peak right now and they back off a little bit, and then things become a little bit tougher. And you know what? Thankfully, we're 48 days away from the trade deadline, and maybe those flows are still to come. We've seen the ebbs right now, obviously, for the Toronto Blue Jays, but it's going to be very, very interesting in the next 3 or 4 weeks to see how this Blue Jays lineup reacts, continues to play well. Maybe some guys hit a slump or not, and then what the front office and John Schneider on a day-to-day basis decides to do about it.
Yeah, I decided to throw that one over to you because I thought it was a pretty obvious answer with, again, just the way this team is built. Like, you're not going to have Bo out of the lineup. You're not going to have Vladdy out of the lineup. When Santander comes back, again, unless he completely struggles like he did in the first stint, again, God forbid if that does happen, but he had 44 home runs last year. The power is there. It's hard to keep that guy out of the lineup.
Well, I think the one ththing with Santander is, like you mentioned, they take the long route with him. It's the PCP shot instead of the cortisone shot. Thank you for this information.
Yeah, you learn something every day. There you
yes, it's really fueled my take that I'm about to develop here. But, Anthony, obviously we know Anthony Santander has it. He has the power. I think, a little bit longer time off is probably the best thing for him. And honestly, the Blue Jays don't need him right now. They definitely, I think they'd be probably giving something back if he was in their lineup today, as opposed to the lineups that they're trotting out right now for the Blue Jays. Obviously, we've seen this offense over the last 3 weeks. So take your time. Maybe find something on his rehab stint. Comes back with a different mindset. He's probably had a lot of film to watch, that sort of thing. And he could become the Anthony Santander that we expected when we gave him $100 million this offseason.
I mean, just think about like the power numbers that we could see from a lineup with Bichette, with Vladdy, with Santander hitting on all cylinders. You have Addison Barger, Alejandro Kirk, who's been unbelievable, George Springer, like Daulton Varsho. Like, you continue to go down the list. And the way these guys have been playing, if you can just get the average baseball that these guys are capable of playing, this is a pretty decent lineup. But unfortunately for some of these fringe MLB guys, for some of the guys that have really been producing in the absence of some of these bigger names, there's pretty jam-packed when you look at this batting order and you look at a lot of these position players. You have Andrus at second. You know, again, Vladimir at first. Alejandro Kirk predominantly is going to start at that catcher position. Daulton Varsho is going to be playing center field every single day. George Springer probably either going to DH or play right field. That bat is going to be in the lineup. So really, for me, the only options that you do have as a sort of platoon is you can, I guess, experiment with that DH position. Third base is pretty much predominantly going to be Ernie Clement and Addison Barger. And then you got one fielding spot with Nathan Lucas. It could be, again, Alan Roden. You could have Jonathan Clase, Miles Straws in there. There's so many players down the list that you could throw into this. So I think with everyday players, I think it's pretty easy to predict what they are going to do. With when it gets a little bit tougher is who are they going to send down in the event that, again, when Daulton Varsho comes back, when Santander comes back, when Nathan Lucas comes back. I think at this point, at least for me, Nathan Lucas has done more than enough to prove that he should be on this major league team. So for you, that's 3 players that they're going to have to send down. Who are your 3 players that you don't necessarily expect to be on the Toronto Blue Jays when these players do come back?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy. I think they, as you said, Nathan Lucas deserves to be on this roster. I think he maybe is probably getting that 26th man treatment when things wrap up here. But, I think we've seen potential from guys like Alan Roden, a guy we never expected to break camp with the ball club. Jonathan Clase was kind of a future piece when he was acquired by this team. Those are 2 guys with options. And I think those are 2 guys that can deserve to play every day and continue to hone their craft. And it probably, deserves to be in Buffalo. I just think back to the way we watched Davis Schneider's treatment when he came up with the Blue Jays. Obviously the hot start and then riding pine for way too long at a time. And everybody felt like it just wasn't the best thing for someone who shows so much promise. And obviously he's in this camp too right now as far as the Blue Jays roster construction goes. But I think Clase and Roden are the easy picks for me. After that, I would keep Lucas on this roster. I don't know what you really think, but I just think that at least you have 2 easy options. I don't think the decisions have to be that complicated for the Blue Jays brass when it comes to these injury replacements and the guys like Santander and Varsho coming back for position players.
See, for me, when I look at this roster, Will Robertson just recently got called up. I think that's a pretty obvious one. I think that would be your 3rd probably. That guy obviously is going to end up being sent down. When you look at this team right now, they have a ton of outfielders. So I think that is where they would probably more likely go to if they are going to send somebody down. So for me, I have it as a pretty easy fix right now. Jonathan Clase is that fringe guy for me. I could see it going either way, but for me, I am going to keep him with the major league club just because of, again, the ability to pinch run in scenarios. Again, doesn't necessarily provide the best defense of all time, but again, when you have that sprint speed, it does make up for a lot of like the miscued routes. Maybe you don't get the best jump on the ball, so you can make up for it with that speed. I think there's just a lot of ways you can use Jonathan Clase. For me, Davis Schneider, one thing that does help him out is that he is going to be able to play the infield. But again, he's only really going to hit against left-handed pitching. So for me, the 3 guys that you are going to send down is Alan Roden, it's Will Robertson, and it would be Davis Schneider. I am giving Jonathan Clase a little bit more of a leash in this situation. So for me, you're going to have, again, your guys that are playing every single day. You're really your non-negotiables. You're going to have Ernie Clement hit against lefties because he is literally Barry Bonds against left-handed pitching. Addison Barger is going to play against right-handed pitching. And then just kind of going down the list, Andrus Gimenez, again, maybe a guy that you try to experiment a little bit more to get some of these guys in, especially if, you don't really get that bat from Andrus Gimenez, but he's going to play against righties. Lucas is going to play against righties. Jonathan Clase, a guy who would play against righties. Then for your lefties, Ernie Clement, like I said, Miles Straw would be a guy that you throw in there a lot of the time as well. Tyler Heineman has an absolutely ridiculous OPS as I was looking at some of the splits and just how I was going to figure out my platoon. He has an OPS of over 1,500 against left-handed pitching. The stats are absolutely ridiculous.
So for Ernie Clement's Barry Bonds, what is Tyler Heineman?
Barry Bonds on twice the amount of steroids. I don't know. Like
Barry Bonds and Shohei Ohtani's love child.
Yeah, and maybe throw Aaron Judge in there for a love triangle. That's clearly what he is.
Thruple, baby.
I'm not even going to go into the expected stats with Tyler Heineman because the stats that he actually has are unbelievable. But then you look at the expected stats and they are so much lower. I think he's expected to hit 250. He's hitting 400. The slugging is at 600. He's expected slugging. He's at 375. So again, let's just live with the magician, the guy that just again is doing magical things on the baseball field right now. But obviously Tyler Heideman is your backup catcher. I don't expect that to change whatsoever. So offensively, I think this is relatively easy to figure out. I think there is really 3 or 4 players that, again, doesn't really matter which one you send down. There still is some time for some of these guys to prove themselves. I think it could be John DeClasse. I think it could be David Schneider, Alan Roden. One of those guys will be able to stay with the Major League club. It's just going to depend on how they perform and who wants it more and who is going to make the most of their opportunity. When we come to the bullpen, that's where it gets a lot more complicated, because when all of these guys do come back, the Toronto Blue Jays have a ton of options, and a lot of them are very good options as well. So that is going to be what we get into next, but we do have a short break to come at you guys with. Lots more we want to get into, and we will come back after this break. Today's episode is sponsored by Trade Coffee. Let's be real. Coffee isn't just a drink. It's a ritual, a lifeline, and the thing that gets you from half asleep to fully functioning. And if it's that essential, why settle for anything less than amazing? That's where Trade Coffee comes in. Trade Coffee is the #1 coffee destination in the USA, delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're into cold brew, whether you're a cold brew fan or a purist, they've got the roast that you'll absolutely love. So Trade Coffee sent us a big package. Usually I've been like a Folgers guy. I just a guy that just goes to Walmart. I'm not too particular in my coffee. At least I wasn't before that I got Trade Coffee. I would just pick the cheapest option, and then I kind of used it at my disposal. Not an every single day cup of coffee guy, but I do like to have coffees in that time of need. But then we got the Trade Coffee shipment, and it absolutely blew me away. It is the way that I start almost every single morning now. It has turned me into an even bigger coffee guy. So I encourage you guys to try Trade Coffee. Get one of the roasters that you enjoy. They have a ton of variety of flavors. So you really can't miss out, and you can't pick a bad option for you if you are using Trade Coffee. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our customers 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. That is trade.com/lockedonmlb for 50% off your 1-month trial. That is drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. All right, so let's just dive right into it. I was going over some of these bullpen options, and there's a ton of options and a lot of guys that I have a fair amount of faith in if they were to go in this game. So these are the guys that I do have listed as guys, again, kind of fringe MLB talents, guys that have been pretty productive in their opportunities with the Toronto Blue Jays. So I do have a list of 12 here. Obviously, you can only have 8 guys in your bullpen, but I have Ryan Burr, who again is injured right now, Paxton Schultz, Jeff Hoffman, Jimmy Garcia, also another injury, Braden Fisher, Brendan Little, Yariel Rodriguez, Nick Sandlin, Mason Flaherty, Erik Swanson, Spencer Turnbull, and Chad Green. So out of all 12 of those guys, maybe you do have another guy that I have not mentioned. I'm pretty sure I covered all the bases. Who are your 8 in no particular order? I guess let's start with this. Let's start with the guys that you really trust, the guys that you have no problem throwing out there and getting you 0 at this point.
Yeah, well, I think the big question mark for the circle of trust, as it would be for the Blue Jays, is obviously the health of Jimmy Garcia. I don't think he's throwing off a mound yet. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Carter, but this could be a long-winded recovery for a guy, as most Blue Jays pitchers are. We've seen an influx of youth in the bullpen like this year, but this is really starters and bullpen. Like, a lot of elder statesmen are out here. And I think, they're going to have to take their time with Jimmy, obviously. Jeff Hoffman has been working hard. John Schneider has asked a lot of him, as all Blue Jays fans know, over the first 2.5 months of this baseball season. A little bit concerning as well, trying to manage that workload. I think guys I trust, Brendan Little needs to find the strike zone a little bit more. He gets a lot of swing and miss in his game. Obviously, the 8th inning in the second game or the third game of the series against the Cardinals was that was Brendan Little baseball, I think, summed up. 31 pitches. I think he threw 24 in his last appearance before that. Maybe the guy most in need of a day off. As far as that Blue Jays plane ride to Philadelphia was concerned. I don't know. I would have taken him as the favorite to have the most Busch Lights on that flight over, but I don't know what the flight time was. But
I think FanDuel had a line actually for the most beers on that flight to Philly. So
yeah. So Braden Fisher, Brendan Little cashes at -220 as a heavy favorite for sure on that one. He was working hard. He was nails in that 8th inning for the Jays, obviously. and set up Yariel Rodriguez, a guy you're also putting in the circle of trust.
Yeah,
First
like
Major League Baseball save is he didn't even get a save in Japan, I heard on the broadcast, which is pretty crazy. I think his last save was in Cuba in like 2021 or 2022, something like that. Obviously, so much emotion, so much heat. The fastball got up to 99 yesterday or 2 days ago when you're hearing this podcast against the Cards. Maybe he is the Jays setup man for Jeff Hoffman of the future as we wait for Jimmy Garcia. Nick Sandlin is in the same boat as Jimmy Garcia, though I'm less worried about the recovery from injury. Guy you can trust. Different arm slot, different delivery. It's a different look for hitters. I think you could trust him. It's obviously maybe putting a little more pressure on the defenders with the amount of ground balls and hits that he will generate, soft contact. Everybody other than that is really up for grabs. And obviously they have some young guys in the bullpen, as I mentioned, the Mason Fluhartys of the world. I don't think you can take Braden Fisher away from this team right now the way he's pitched. Everybody else, including Chad Green, unfortunately, are up for grabs. I think Chad Green really will be trade bait for the Toronto Blue Jays as we approach this trade deadline. A veteran, I think teams know what they can get. But I do think, he's reached his ceiling as far as it's concerned with these teams, and he's not at it, or with this team, and he's not at it right now. And I just think when you go outside those four guys, you really just got to look at your pitch mix, the way they look at hitters, the way you can set up multiple relievers in a row, especially with the way this Blue Jays starting pitching lineup is looking with a pseudo bullpen day. Although I do think Eric Lauer really is essentially your fifth starter until further notice. I just think the rest of the guys are really up for grabs and a lot of tough decisions being made by this front office.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. The only difference I would have is I don't think you said that Mason Fluharty was in your circle of trust. He would be in mine at this point. I think he has done more than enough from the left side. Again, being your second lefty reliever has been unbelievable. Again, every time I watch this guy pitch, I have no idea how this team picked Richard Lovelady to opening day over Mason Fluharty. Again, at least they got rid of that guy pretty quickly, did not linger around for the organization for too long. So, again, no particular order, but Jeff Hoffman, Jimmy Garcia, Brendan Little, Yariel Rodriguez, Mason Fluharty, and I also have Nick Sandlin as a guy, again, you're just not going to send down whatsoever. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. I have Paxton Schultz in here. I don't really have him in contention just with how many relievers you do have. Ryan Bird, another guy, still has options. I think you do start him in AAA. So there's four guys and two spots. And this is kind of what you alluded to a little bit here. There's Braden Fisher, there's Chad Green, there's Spencer Turnbull, and there is Erik Swanson. When you look at some of the contracts these guys are making, again, the Blue Jays are probably going to be over the luxury tax. I don't think that this has too many implications unless they decide, move on from like Anthony Santander, do something absolutely ridiculous. Some people are wanting to flip Andrus Gimenez. I would just like to ask, who are you in the hell are you going to get to take that contract? He's going to be making $23 million in a couple of years.
People were asking why the Blue Jays took that contract. We obviously knew why Cleveland didn't take the contract because they're cheap, right? Yeah. And the Blue Jays were a team that had money to spend. I just don't think you're going to pull that trick again. And honestly, as a guy that's grown to watch good defense, and kind of respected what the Blue Jays front office is trying to put together, this is the perfect guy to fit the mold. So, yeah, he's just got to find the swing a little bit. You saw it in the game 2 of the Cardinal series, and I have a lot of faith in that guy.
Yeah, I think you have to. Again, he has done it at the major league level. Again, there's a lot of peaks and valleys in every player's MLB career. So you just kind of have to ride the wave and hope that it does get better. But I'll throw this question over to you. So out of these four players, again, I'll name it one more time: Erik Swanson, Spencer Turnbull, Chad Green, and Braden Fisher. Who are the two guys that you are going with at this point? And I just wanted to clarify, if you don't pick Chad Green, Erik Swanson, or Spencer Turnbull, they are out of options. So you're either going to have to trade them or you're just going to have to send them away for nothing and DFA them. Maybe you get like a cash consideration trade. Who are the 2 out of 4 guys that you're picking to remain in this bullpen, again, when these players do come back?
Yeah, I think for me, honestly, until I see otherwise, is Chad Green and Erik Swanson. Swanee was the big piece of the Teoscar Hernandez trade to the Mariners. I think there was a lot of reason at the time for Blue Jays fans to be excited. Adam Macko is, a name that we've mentioned time and time again on this podcast, is especially as the injuries to the starting rotation have come up, and maybe a guy that we could see in a Blue Jays uniform at some point this year. So it's nice to see the future come through on this trade. But Erik Swanson's done great things for this ball club. He's been a great setup guy at times for this Blue Jays bullpen. But coming back from this injury, being an older guy, the velo is still not there, and I'm a little concerned about that. And then, we just haven't seen it from Chad Green at any point this season. Like you said, I don't think a trade for Chad Green is to net you anything that Blue Jays fans are going to be really excited about as far as the future is concerned. But I like what I've seen from Braden Fisher. Obviously, I like what I've seen from Paxton Schultz, those sort of guys. I don't think you can, mortgage the future. You have an opportunity for these guys to play quite a bit, given the way the Blue Jays starting rotation is currently constructed. So I think, just like we saw with the Cardinals and some of their pitchers, they're giving these guys a lot of runway, even if they're not playing well. Blue Jays are doing that with Bowden and Francis right now. They believe in the guy. Obviously, they believe in these relievers because they have shown it at times during this season. I think it's a couple of the elder statesmen that might be on their way out.
Yeah, I don't hate that whatsoever. For me, I do have Chad Green making his way out. The only unfortunate thing with the trade with this guy is that he has a salary cap hit of $10.5 million. So it's going to be kind of tough to flip a guy again who is definitely past his prime, is giving up a lot of home runs. Again, with the veteran presence, maybe down the stretch, if a team wants to take a flyer on a bullpen arm, a guy that has had some playoff experience, maybe not the worst thing for a team to take advantage of. If the Blue Jays DFA him, Chad Green's getting picked up instantly. I don't think he sits on the waiver wire for too long, but just the way things are going right now, I think Chad Green would be a big candidate for that. I think if you're just looking at terms of talent, I think Braden Fisher should be in this bullpen, but just because he is a guy with options, if you're already going to give up one of Chad Green, Turnbull, and Swanson, I don't think you want to give up two veterans in this scenario. So I don't have Braden Fisher on the team, but I can definitely see why, if you're just looking at this year and wanting to win, why Braden Fisher could be on this roster. So that kind of brings me to Spencer Turnbull and then Erik Swanson. I guess these are the two guys that I do have in my lineup here. And I think this can switch on an absolute dime because we've only seen Spencer Turnbull pitch once for the Toronto Blue Jays at the major league level. So things could go really good. Things could go really bad. They still have some time to make that decision with Spencer Turnbull as well. So, and with Erik Swanson, the reason I picked Erik Swanson over Chad Green is just kind of because of what he did in 2024 and just the circumstances behind a little bit of his performance. Obviously, pre-All-Star break, he was horrific, had over a 9 ERA, but again, had some kind of outside factors ruling into this. His son was airlifted to a hospital after a car accident, had some injury troubles as well at the start of the year. It's definitely just a very tough 2024 for Erik Swanson, but you look at his numbers after the All-Star break, 2.55 ERA over 24.2 innings pitched, a whip of 101, an opponent average of 172. And you've seen Erik Swanson be absolutely dialed for this team in 2023. You saw it with the Mariners throughout 2021 and 2022. So I think it's just too early to cut the leash on Erik Swanson. And another reason why I didn't go with Braden Fisher is because you have Jeff Hoffman, you have Jimmy Garcia, you have Fluharty, Little, Yariel, you have Sandlin. You have already a ton of guys that you are ready to throw and ready to get you a zero in those instances. So I don't necessarily think there's a lot of pressure on Braden Fisher. I think that he wouldn't necessarily get a ton of outings. And for, again, a younger guy that doesn't necessarily have an established MLB career, I think it would benefit him a ton to just throw a lot of bullpen sessions to be used as a higher leverage guy down in Dunedin, Buffalo. But I don't really think there's necessarily a wrong answer right now. If you spin it where you keep Chad Green, maybe you get rid of Erik Swanson, maybe you get rid of Spencer Turnbull. Again, with the run that Spencer Turnbull's had, I don't think you get rid of this guy after, he's thrown 2 scoreless innings, even though he did give up a leadoff double. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do. It's going to be an important decision, and I wouldn't be surprised if whoever they do pick to DFA, because I do think one guy on this roster will be DFA'd. I wouldn't be surprised if they go and move on to another team and not necessarily be dominant, but I think they can definitely be serviceable, whether they're on a playoff team or a non-playoff team.
Yeah, obviously I think we can turn it in from a 4 players, 2 positions thing to a 1 position, 3 players thing. And I honestly think the Blue Jays front office is probably going to have to decide between what you've seen from Spencer Turnbull in 2 innings, because none of the things he did in the minor league system coming up to this Blue Jays roster after being signed to the team were any good. I was on the Blue Jays on the money line yesterday, and it was a pick I was confident enough to tell to my friends, and I don't do that always with the Blue Jays picks I have, but I said hold on to your hats when Spencer Turnbull comes into this game after Eric Lauer. And Eric Lauer obviously did a pretty serviceable job, and Spencer Turnbull spun it. Also one of the 2 Blue Jays pitchers on this roster with a no-hitter, so I mean that is something. veteran presence. He had it going that day, whatever that was for the Tigers in 2021. But you go with what you've seen from recent with Spencer Turnbull and kind of believe in a progression of sorts, or do you believe in the history that you've seen with Erik Swanson and believe he can get back to that? I really believe that's a question that the front office has to answer to solve this problem.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily like they have to make a decision right now. I'm just going to quickly go over just some, again, rough timelines of a lot of these guys. Some of them are more clear than others. I'll start with the guy that's closest to returning. It is Nick Sandlin. Didn't make an appearance in Buffalo on Thursday, actually, but did give up back-to-back nukes in that performance. So I guess I'll quickly throw it over to you. Just give me a short answer here. How much are you like taking away from that? We saw with Spencer Turnbull. Yeah, again, some pretty horrific starts. Did have a good start in the MLB. Are you worried about Nick Sandlin and his production after not pitching for a while and giving up back-to-back moon balls in AAA for the Buffalo Bisons?
You know what? You would have asked me this when I last joined the pod on Wednesday morning. I would have probably said yeah. But based on what I saw from Spencer Turnbull, which was not much, in the minor league system, and he obviously didn't have a very good start in his last start at Buffalo or his last appearance in Buffalo. Then he came in and did a very good job against the MLB team that came into the series 7 games about 500 in the Cardinals. I'm not putting a lot of stock into that. I think you need to see Nick Sandlin against MLB pitchers. I think you need to see him get a little bit of runway, and I think Blue Jays fans need to have a little bit of patience with him if the first couple of outings maybe don't go as planned. I really think that's where it stands for me.
And he's going to have a ramp-up period. A lot of the times in these minor league rehab assignments, they're not necessarily, like they are trying to obviously be effective and they are trying to get batters out, but a lot of the time it's just, do they have their stuff? Do they have their velo? They definitely have a game plan. It's not necessarily to win games for Buffalo. There's a bigger picture, and it's to win games and be productive for the Toronto Blue Jays. So just kind of going and continuing on down the list, Ryan Burr is another guy that should be here probably sooner than a guy like Yimi Garcia. Again, there's just really not a ton of room for a guy like Ryan Burr. And with what they're getting from Braden Fisher, I don't think there's too much of a rush to do a flip-flop here and switch out Braden Fisher for Ryan Burr. So I don't think Ryan Burr is necessarily, it's not like he's a bad option, but I just don't think he will be an option just the way things currently stand with the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen. Obviously, Yimi Garcia, this one is a little bit murkier. He has resumed throwing activities, hasn't thrown off a mound yet. So you got to expect that he's going to have to make a few rehab assignments, probably still about a week and a half away. And that is pretty much it for the bullpen. Again, the bullpen's in a very good spot. When you have 12 guys that I listed off there, then I'm pretty confident, not necessarily get a zero, but to be productive, to give your team a chance. Again, there are going to be blow-up starts for every single relief pitcher, but you have 12 guys compared to last year where you had maybe 4 guys that you were confident in. That is definitely a massive upgrade, and one of the reasons why the Toronto Blue Jays have been on a huge stretch, and has been one of the high points of their season. So they've
been on a huge stretch, but I do think like the whole time I've watched this Blue Jays team over the last 3-4 weeks, with what we've seen from Bowden Francis and really having 3 guys you can trust out of every 5 days for this Blue Jays rotation, like it does feel to me like it's really like balancing on a precipice. Like they have done everything they can in the current situation, and I give props to every single reliever that's shown up in the game for the Toronto Blue Jays. But at the end of the day, I just don't think this is sustainable, into August, into even mid-July. A month from now, I don't expect the Blue Jays to continue up this pace with the bullpen, which they have been doing. And hopefully they don't have to, because hopefully we've solved a bit of those starting rotation problems, whether it's about a Francis improvement, whether it's, an Eric Lauer, becoming that pseudo 5th starter, or Max Scherzer coming back and throwing more than 3 innings. But as it stands right now, it's just not a sustainable thing. And thank God we have 12 guys to sort of count on, or 12 guys that are at least an option for the Major League Ball Club.
Well, and that's another reason why I kind of picked to send Braden Fisher back down to AAA, because it's baseball. You might get all of your guys back at one point, but there's bound to be some injuries in this bullpen. So there's bound to be a veteran that does go down, an established guy that does go down. If you're pulling up Braden Fisher opposed to, another guy in this bullpen, like even over Paxton Schultz. Paxton Schultz hasn't been bad, but I would prefer Braden Fisher. I think right now I prefer Braden Fisher over Ryan Burr. So in the event of an injury, you still have some reliable guys that you have seen do it this season at the major league level that can come in and be productive for your baseball team. That's kind of going to wrap up our roster decisions episode. There's going to be some important decisions that the Toronto Blue Jays do have to make, and a lot can change obviously from now until when these guys do pop off the IL. So leave your comments, leave your opinions in our comment section here. Do you agree with us on this podcast? Do you have something completely different? Do you think we're absolute idiots and completely missed something here that's right in front of our faces? That's definitely a possibility, but we like to see your perspectives, like to hear your opinions on what you think John Schneider, Ross Atkins, and the front office are going to do with the management of this bullpen and these fielders at at their these position players that are playing for this Blue Jays organization. So let's dive into the series after this short break. It's the Philadelphia Phillies, one of the best teams in the NL. Things went pretty good the first time that the Toronto Blue Jays did have these guys, but again, it was at home. Now they got to go on the road to Philly. So we're going to get into that series after this short break.
The NBA and NHL playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off or puck drop, and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Talk about playing smart, folks. The United States Open this week. I know there's lots of going on between Canada and the United States geopolitics right now. Tell you what, Canadians are taking back this golf tournament. Earlier in the week, I'm on Nick Taylor. I'm on Corey Connors to make the cut. Both guys respectable performances at Oakmont in Pennsylvania earlier today, staying in the mix. I also got Joaquin Niemann. You can't not trust this guy after he's dominated LIV. I know it's kind of a Mickey Mouse tour, but at 20-1, to finish in the top 20, it was just too easy for me. Also sprinkled Corey Connors 55-1 to win the United States Open. Not to mention Game 4 of the Stanley Cup playoffs tonight. What a banger! The reason I left Carter to record this episode so late tonight, got the Oilers down 2-0. Nice little plus 425 money line game. I mean, it's just been incredible. FanDuel makes it all happen. Makes it happen live. It's fast and easy. Hop on the app. Hop on the website. You can place your bet and get paid. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if I keep this pace up, if FanDuel's not even paying for ads after the next week or so. So just saying, if you don't see them, it's thanks to me. FanDuel, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet. If it wins, $200 in bonus bets. You can DM me. I'll tell you where to put those $200. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
This guy's on a little Blue Jays run here on FanDuel, just hitting seemingly every bet. It's been pretty good.
Not to mention, I actually forgot to mention the ad read. I had the Jays money line as a single yesterday, plus 125. I felt like Liberatore was too shaky to give that number, despite the Jays on a bullpen day. And then I threw an Ernie Clement hit in there. Well, if I would have thrown an Ernie Clement homer in there, we would have been reading an ad for like Beyond Burger or something there. Like FanDuel would have been out of business. So I've been printing it right now. Usually when I say things like this, to my friends on air, to an audience of thousands on Locked On Blue Jays, just want to hit a massive cold streak. So maybe bet Corey Connors to miss the cut tomorrow. He's maybe have a rough day, but riding with my Canadian guys, the U.S. Open, that's for sure.
Yeah, FanDuel might have to commit to bankruptcy. They might be saved by Skylar Peters over the weekend.
So again, with my $10 bets, yeah, I'm sure that's going to do it.
They just got to hold out like you see every NFL player do when they have a good season. And then they'll eventually, you figure it out and you'll actually get the bag. NFL players don't often do that and they often ruin their careers. But again, maybe Skylar's going to ruin the entire FanDuel business. And again, unfortunately, might not have the ad reads if things go too well for this guy. But let's see how well things go for the Toronto Blue Jays. And again, a tough series against the Philadelphia Phillies. This is an absolute gauntlet in this series. The first game, Kevin Gausman versus Ranger Suarez. Second game, you got Bowden Francis versus Christopher Sanchez. That's not look good on paper. I'll tell you that for free. And then you got Jose Berrios and Zach Wheeler. You got lucky in the first series. Did not see Zach Wheeler. You do get him here in this series. One positive is that you do have two left-handed pitchers to start the series. So that means Barry Bonds is in the lineup. You'll absolutely love to see it. Continue on. Absolutely hammer that on FanDuel. Ernie Clement, if you guys are wondering who I am mentioning, because you just know this guy's going to hit a double, probably going to have a nuke.
It's too late. He went 3 for 3 with a homer on Wednesday. It's too late. It's
going to happen again.
220 for a homer.
Yeah, they're going to have like the third best odds in the MLB, Ernie Clement against left-handed pitching. Again, it's Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez. Like, these aren't bums like on the mound. It's not, like Sean Burke from the White Sox. Like, it's not Kyle Freeland from the Rockies. These guys are established vets, and these guys are very good pitchers. So this is going to be another, I guess you could say, prove-it series. If the Toronto Blue Jays sweep the Philadelphia Phillies, I think I don't even know what I'm going to do. I think maybe I'll leave your comments on a jersey that I'll buy. Maybe for the people, maybe for myself, depending on who you get. If it's somebody I like, maybe I'll just keep it. I'll be a selfish guy. What it is what it is. But if you guys, if the Toronto Blue Jays prove me wrong, I don't have a sweep obviously in the series. The Philadelphia Phillies are a great baseball team. If they sweep a series, maybe I will buy a jersey and give it to some one of the people. But it's got to be a funny jersey. It can't be Vladdy. It can't be Poe. It's got to be like a Jonathan Clase. It's got to be like an Alan Roden. Maybe I'll get a Bradley Zimmer jersey, flowing back with the Toronto Blue Jays, or a Munenori Kawasaki. I'd absolutely love to buy one of those
Marco
jerseys.
Estrada, something you could wear to a party and someone's like, oh yeah. And that's someone you want to like spend 5 minutes talking to. You can talk about that change up.
Maybe we'll get somebody like Brandon Wasco Blue Jays jersey. You live in the realm of his career that is no longer going too well. Has switched over to the podcasting gig. That's going at least a little bit better for him with things right now. But Skylar, what are your expectations? What are your predictions for the series against the Philadelphia Phillies?
Yeah, I mean, in the 6 games that the Blue Jays have played against the Philadelphia Phillies in recent memory, obviously, they had the home series. They missed Aaron Nola in the first series because of injury, and it turns out he has another injury. I think it was an ankle or a foot thing coming in that Philly series that it's signed on. Now it's a ribcage thing. He's out till the All-Star break. So great. The Blue Jays miss Aaron Nola, and what do they get in return? like maybe I don't think you could draw up 3 worse starting pitchers in terms of what your opponent's looking at. If you look at any team for the Toronto Blue Jays over the next 3 games, obviously starting today. Very tough. I definitely take what I said about, the big picture road trip expectations in mind here. Phillies 21-13 at home, Citizens Bank Park, not a nice place to play. I think the Blue Jays, really Friday is going to set the tone for me. If they can get up to a hot start, if the bats can keep going, obviously we expect Gausman and Berrios to kind of do their thing. They've been so solid for the Blue Jays. I think one of them is going to have to really spin a gem if the Blue Jays are going to take 2 out of 3 off the Phillies. Other than that, what? 1 or 2, 1 and 2, 2 and 1, obviously very happy with. 2 and 1 would be great. 3-0, ecstatic. I will donate half of the jersey cost, Carter. Don't worry. But I do want to say and who's getting on the back of that for sure. So put it out there for the commenters. Put your jerseys in on this episode, then we'll know you're a real one because we got timestamps. Other than that, yeah, I mean, Saturday is going to be it's a tough look. I mean, I don't think too many Blue Jays fans are chalking this up as a game that the bats can win. 4-bound Francis, and hopefully he proves us wrong, and hopefully this is the game he starts to turn things around, but we just haven't seen it lately. So I think you're really penciling one in there, maybe penning one in there. So I think 2 and 1 is, the optimistic expectation for the Blue Jays right now. 1 and 2 still certainly happy with, but I do think they're going to have to get that 1 in on Friday night for sure to at least set the tone for this road trip.
I completely agree with that. That's exactly what I have as well. I'm going to say that the Blue Jays are going to have a series loss here, but I think I've said that on like 3 of the last 4 series, and my predictions have been the exact opposite.
Keep saying it. It's working.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So I'm going to go again with another series loss. Let's see if the Blue Jays can prove me wrong once again. I'll be wrong every single time on this kind of stuff. And, you guys, you make fun of me in the comment section if the Blue Jays do continue on winning. Like, you got Gausman versus Ranger Suarez. Like, the worst pitcher in this series for the Phillies is Christopher Sanchez. He's 5-2 with a 3.10 ERA, has 83 strikeouts. Yeah. The baseball savant page is pretty much just a cigarette over there. Just like the Philadelphia Phillies logo, their uniforms. Like, it's going to be a tough series. But again, if they're going to continue to prove the doubters wrong, this would be a massive series win to continue on that momentum and make it 6 series wins in a row. We're going to have to see how it does unfold over the weekend. Hopefully we just can continue to see some power bats, continue to see the rise of Addison Barcher, to continue to see the absolute legacy performances of Alejandro Kirk, George Springer sneakily having a good series. We haven't seen a Vladdy bomb in a long time. I want him to launch so bad. I don't care who it's against. It would be Zach Wheeler would be preferred because that would just be awesome to tweet something like that, hitting a bomb off of a pitcher of that caliber. But Skylar, I just want to say thank you for joining us once again. Thank you for filling in for Braden just a second time this week. Pulling a double for the boys. I appreciate it a ton. I'm sure the fans do as well.
Hey, that's what I do, man. Happy to be here. You can call me back anytime. You got my number. I thought my phone wasn't working for a little while, but 2 and 3 days is nice to see. So happy to get back. And also I got the, we'll talk offline, but I got the next trip booked back to the Peg. So hopefully we'll need some of that coffee you were talking about in the first ad break, one of those mornings after I get back. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a late night when you're over here. They always are late nights, obviously. So we're probably going to need about 8 cups of coffee if we want to get up at a decent time in the morning.
Get the full pot on the program. Get it ready. Like 9 a.m. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. I'll shake my back out after sleeping on that couch. It's pretty tough over there, but I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, with the morning, we'll just do trade coffee and wonderful pistachios, and it won't be beat for the couple FanDuel bets.
What else do you want? FanDuel's out of business by then. We'll have to find another provider, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They might blacklist you from all betting sites so you continue the run that you are on. Again, maybe there's a correlation with the Blue Jays run and the Skylar Peters run on FanDuel. You got 2 Blues. You got the blue jersey here. What a day for the boys, honestly. I'm going for the Edmonton Oilers, obviously. They do tie up the series. My slow pitch team gets a win. For those of you who care, it's probably absolutely nobody. But the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Quick shout out. Yes, quick shout out to the Blue Bombers. Chris Streveler, QB2. Brady Oliveira goes down on the first drive. Still get the convincing W against the BC Lions. That was some great TV watching, having to flip back and forth between obviously the Stanley Cup final and the Blue Bombers home opener. And boys are off to a great start. I mean, vibes could not be higher. Connor Hellebuck won the Hart Trophy today. What a great sports day for Winnipeg sports fans right now. Obviously, hoping our Blue Jays can continue those good vibes tomorrow in Philly.
Well, and the Toronto Blue Jays, they won the off day as well. So a victory for the Toronto Blue Jays. If they ought to throw them in there, keep the momentum going. And it all starts on the Thursday off day, just recovering from the gazillion beers that they did drink on that flight. Just wanted to say thank you guys for watching, the likes, comments. All the support has been much appreciated. We have noticed about 75% of you guys are not subscribed with all the new people coming in. If you are tuning in, watching the new episodes, we do appreciate the subscription. It is free. Also helps us out a ton and also keeps our content at the top of your page. We're going to have a weekend. We hope you guys do as well. We hope the Toronto Blue Jays continue on with their torrid pace and can win another series. Thank you guys for watching, and we will talk to you guys again on Monday.